So we return on the same night, scenes opening at the site of the coterie coming back together, Cormac and Tom returning on foot to find two men holding this chest as Elenid and Robert seem to be moving some of these belongings out into the street when the four of you come together. It is late in the night, and most people have deserted the streets by this point. The scene is yours.
God's balls, are you all right?
We're fine. How did it go?
As well as could be expected. But Gabriel's man seems to have been an informant.
Is that so? Then we should assume whatever plans we had were leaked.
Yes, that would explain why he left the door as well.
Any plans we might have made are unimportant at this point. There's really nothing up there worth pursuing. Insofar as our investigation is concerned, at least.
And then you know this how?
We spoke to Dufour.
Then these are not a roving band of barbarians.
He'll glance for a moment at Cormac, giving him a moment to speak up and provide his piece if he so chooses.
Anyway, as Cormac was saying, when he was given the floor by Tom, all we know for certain is that they're enemies of the Covenant. Whether or not they're barbarians, it's hard to tell. But they're certainly not led by one.
Far from it. And given their demeanor and preparations, the fire at the manor house would have been very contrary to their aims.
And what is their aim?
They aim to misbehave and revolt.
Thus being enemies.
Did you perhaps see Amelia while you were up there?
No, why? Did she go missing?
She has left the inn, though this is the town she resides in. She could have simply gone elsewhere.
Did you check her alcove in the basement?
She nods and says yes, that was one of the first places we checked. But the prince of the area did seem rather unpleased with her actions.
He's no prince. He has no vassals.
He has a neonate caitiff and a few ghouls, at best.
That was why I used a pause before the word prince.
Forgive me for the lost subtlety.
The long and the short of it is, This lot would much rather operate in secrecy without the notice of the Gauntlet. So, for them to be killed a stone's throw away from their encampment draws a good deal of undesired attention. So either they were lured here so that we might find them and confront them, or someone else set the fire.
And the latter, did you come across anything that would point any fingers?
DeFore claimed that he had collected evidence from someone he suspected to have been a perpetrator in the arson, but he was willing to part with it, saying it was his only bargaining chip.
If such a thing would indeed prove his innocence, why did he not reveal more to you?
A strange kindred you know to be in service of an enemy arrives on your doorstep. Are you inclined to trust him?
I suppose if they truly are enemies.
Trust or not, we still have a way to get the answers we need with the, route I mentioned earlier of gaining information on the axe.
I agree, that would be the easier option. Definitely the spirit of one of the slain would have more information than a living man trying to save his own skin.
This group, are they remaining in this area?
No. Our knowledge of them was enough to chase them away, unfortunately.
Is that so?
Although I don't think they'll have much more need for this prince. I think he might be in grave danger.
I don't disagree. If it's all the same to the rest of you, if we have the time, I would say making for Weymouth would be our best next step.
And we'll of course be taking Amelia with us.
If she can be found.
Should she be found, yes.
We'll be certain she is. How far can she go?
Enough for us to lose track.
This also assumes that she is who she said she was, and not also in service to this group.
How many of this group did you see in their encampment?
20 armed and readied soldiers, plus their leader, and DeFore.
And kinda it's all as far as we could tell.
Did you get a sense of how many of them were ghouls?
Only Edward.
Indeed.
We can't even be sure of that.
Indeed, that may in fact be his reward for informing on us.
Some reward.
The blood has a way of playing tricks on the mind. Some desire things they would not normally.
Had I been given a choice. And he gets a sort of faraway look in his eyes, remembering back. But that's neither here nor there. We leave then on the morrow, I assume? Or sooner?
About what time in the evening is it, or is it too close to dawn?
It's quite late. I'm going to say it's closer to 3:30 or 4 now. And given that it's spring, it's going to be dawn in maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours tops.
I was going to say, it's way too close to try. We might make it, but...
Is the carriage light-proofed?
That's not something I'd choose to take a chance on.
That's the difference between you and me. I'd take a chance on a lot of things.
Me and Elenid were searching for a new location for the night. We did not feel safe in our dear prince's establishment.
I'd agree with that. Thomas is going to take a step back and take stock of what buildings there are on the main drag.
There's not a lot. Further down is what seems to be the principal church in the town of Dorchester, and you can see off in the distance there's a castle that seems to bookend the town. It's not very large, but it's still a castle. Otherwise, it's mostly small homes that line this town. It's not very big, and there's clearly not much of prominence here.
If they mean to end us, it won't matter where we spend our day. But let's find a more secure location for the chest and axe. He's going to go off in search of the carriage, which should be parked in or near the stable. He's going to avoid the front door.
Indeed, you do find the carriage, although the carriage driver is missing.
Well, he was told to go catch night's sleep. That's not shocking.
The carriage is present and accompanied for, at least.
Tom is going to see about hiding the axe at least underneath one of the bench seats.
You quickly see that is not going to fit.
Perhaps under one of the blankets, and then securing the doors.
That's more reasonable. And the chest? These two men kind of look around. They seem to be... they've set it down for now. They're kind of... One has their hands on their hips, the other one's looking around curiously. They're just like 10 feet away. They don't seem to know what's going on.
He'll take it from them and set it in between the two benches.
Are we done then? This man looks over to you, Robert.
Yes, it seems this chest will be taken
Great.
care of.
He stops, he just turns around, he starts leaving. The two men are off.
Robert simply shrugs and turns facing the carriage.
And he'll place it inside and secure the doors properly.
The chest fits well in the foot space between the benches. And you close the door. There's no lock on it, but
Figure there'd be some kind of blanket inside. Just throw it over the top of it. Anybody who comes looking isn't going. Well, if they're coming looking for it, they're coming looking for it. They're going to take it regardless of how we secure it.
yeah, you're able to hide the chest as well. There's plenty of blankets around.
And I would suggest we spend the day in Amelia's, well, how to call it, crevice. At least we know it's stay-proof.
Yes, then there begs the question if they're going to send anyone looking for her after what she did.
True enough. We don't even know what the girl is capable of.
It's a risk we're going to have to take. Daylight is coming, like it or no.
Well, at least let us see if we can barricade the room.
Fair enough. If she's going to come back to anywhere, it would be there.
And what are we waiting for?
Thomas shrugs a bit. Apparently a written invitation. He doesn't provide one, but he does head out back in the direction of the inn.
All right, is there anyone not following Thomas back to the inn?
No.
Okay. You make your way back in to the inn and back downstairs. Still no Amelia. She's got her one bed. It's a low hanging ceiling. There are still the baubles and trinkets of value set aside that haven't really been organized very well. She seems to have a small collection of clothes kind of in this corner, screened off in this little boudoir. But otherwise, it's a very modest little home she has here. There is a wooden door. Really, the only thing to barricade against it would probably be this armoire that she keeps her clothes in, this large wooden piece of furniture. Or perhaps the bed.
We'll wait as long as we can for her to return, and then bar the door.
Robert will begin looking for a place to sleep.
It's a flat wooden floor or the bed. It's a small bed.
Cormac will plop himself down on the floor next to the wall. His hands wrapped around his knees.
I feel like given one of Robert's flaws, he would definitely take that bed.
He would rush to it.
Alright. And Ellen and Tom, you find some wooden floorboards for the night?
Tom was going to wait for a while until closer to dawn and see if Amelia comes back. But if Robert's going to dive for the bed, he'll clear his throat. Your chivalry impresses no one.
What? It's not in use.
He'll glance pointedly at Elenid, and then back at Robert.
Oh, don't worry about me. It's not the first time I've slept on the floor. It likely won't be the last.
Scarcely the point. It would have been polite to at least offer.
First come, first serve.
I'll bear that in mind. But then he'll go ahead and shift the armoire in front of the door and wedge it in as best he can.
Alright. You do wait up until close to the time that you feel that the rising sun is pressing you into slumber and never hear any movement against that. And it seems that no one, certainly not Amelia, is coming back here tonight. And before long, you are asleep for the day, only to arise what seems like briefly after the next evening. And I'll take a blood point off as you all wake up roughly around the same time to a new evening, and very little has changed about your surroundings. Seems no one's barged in during the day, at least. We'll start with Elenid. What are you doing as you're rising for the evening and finding everyone else rising as well? The door's still barred and you have a new night.
Well, she gets up, dusts herself off since, well, she just slept on the floor. There's gotta be at least some dirt on her outfit.
Yeah, everyone who slept on the floor is a little bit dusted up. It's not like dirt, but it's certainly not the cleanest. Just a matter of walking around and tracking in mud. That anybody who slept on the ground, your clothes are a little bit dirtier for the experience. Unfortunately, there's no carpets in here.
Thomas mostly just straightens out his coat.
We should probably ready ourselves before that armoire is moved, just in case there's anyone on the other side.
Indeed.
I should also note, just as a reminder, that Thomas looks especially dirty, like he rolled around in the dirt. Even when you noticed him last night, it was more apparent under the light of the inn that he's much dirtier than anyone else.
What happened to you?
I'd rather not talk about it. I was in a bit of a rush, concerned there might have been an attempt on your lives. He'll uncharacteristically retie his hair in the back and straighten it out to make sure the muss is gone.
You pull the remaining, a remaining twig or leaf or two out of there. Robert, you appear flawless. You don't have any dirt on you.
Robert will just straighten out his hair. Give a smirk towards Tom. Well, at least the concern is appreciated.
And soon enough, the armoire is moved out of the way, and you're up and moving out of the inn. And as you reach the upper floor, the main floor, you see walking in is a familiar face. You see Amelia walking in, and her eyes kind of widen for a moment in recognition of you. Oh, good evening. I see you took up residence.
We appreciate your hospitality. We rather hurriedly needed to make use of your rooms.
Oh,
We've left.
Go ahead.
We've left them in the same state we found them.
Oh, it is no trouble at all. I was looking after my father through the previous night. I stayed at his home.
Robert's going to try and tell if this is a lie.
Sure, perception, empathy, standard difficulty. You don't think so. She said it fairly nonchalantly. She's either an expert liar or this is just not that big of a deal for her.
Well, quite relieved to see that nothing happened to you. We did look a bit for you, but could not find you at all.
Oh, well, I apologize for the concern. My father's quite ill. I spend many nights there looking after him, even if he is not fond of me anymore.
I must say I quite envy you for having blood family left alive.
Perhaps for not much longer. And she looks down at the floor, dejected.
You'll certainly get used to that. Immortality, it seems, is quite cruel.
That being the case, do gather your things if you intend to come with us.
I do not know. My father, he's doing worse and worse. I'm afraid if I leave him, there will be no one left to tend for him.
Then would it not be a mercy to speed his passing?
Her eyes widen at you.
Thomas also arches a brow at that.
I'm not saying we kill him in his sleep.
What are you implying, then?
Make the man comfortable and let him die.
He is my papa. I'm not going to just let him die.
You no longer have a papa, Cormac says, and his look is very serious as he looks at her. Do you think yourself a mortal daughter anymore?
Thomas is going to look around. Do we have company around us right now?
There are some people. They're not quite in earshot, but there are people in the inn, sitting down for drinks.
Thomas is going to steer this conversation back towards the screened area where Gabriel usually meets people.
Amelia looks quite vexed. She's looking towards Cormac with bitterness and anger.
He gestures her inside, none all the same, seeming to have forgotten himself for a moment, but quickly recovering. He doesn't look any less angry, though.
Robert's going to take this moment to leave, heading towards the sheriff's office. He'll mention that he has business to attend to.
Devere, any plans you might have had, there's no longer a target there. Make sure you make that clear.
Of course.
I'll go along with him in case anything happens.
Thomas nods a bit.
Good. Then we'll tend to the whelp.
Very well.
The two of you pass Amelia, and she seems not to even notice you. She's glaring at Cormac as she follows the two of them into the screened-off room. We'll follow that scene as the three of you gather. I am still his daughter, even if he doesn't view it that way anymore.
Thomas props himself against a wall and kind of just takes a moment to listen.
Cormac's face does soften a bit. He's trying to put her at ease now. He doesn't want to scare her with his overbearing presence. You must listen to me. If you stay here, you're in grave danger. We can protect you.
If it would help, I can send a carriage back for him. The very same one we rode here. I intend on booking passage on a ship in Weymouth.
She breaks away from Cormac's gaze to look at you and shakes her head. He is far too sick to travel. I do not believe or know if I am in danger or not, but I know that if I leave his side, there are no family members left to care for him. It's just me now.
Then
I'm consigning him to death.
Then shall I send a nurse to make him comfortable?
You have housemaids that you may simply send to care for people?
I have a great many resources at my disposal.
If someone were looking after him, I would feel much better about leaving this place.
Understand, though, it is only staving off the inevitable. It is the nature of mortality to end.
Her face scrunches up. She's clearly not settled on this idea. I'll have you both roll I'll let you choose charisma or manipulation empathy depending on your angle here. Difficulty is going to be 7. Alright, got Cormac and... Okay. So the two of you talking to her, it's clear she's struggling with this internally, but after hearing both your words, she looks at the both of you and nods slowly. There's still reluctance in her eyes, but you seem to have convinced her this is acceptable. We'll at least have time to go back to him to explain, say my goodbyes before the maid gets there and we set off.
I will need to return to London to send for the maid. Though, if I send her by ship, she will be here in a day or two.
then in a day or two I will leave.
Thomas just kind of sighs. This is not going to be acceptable. You will need to come with us tonight.
She frowns at that and looks to Cormac.
Perhaps there is something we could do. He gives Thomas a knowing look. Something that might ensure he stays alive long enough.
Indeed.
What do you speak of? Have you a tonic?
Your education, it seems, was incomplete. How much do you know about your condition?
Thomas looks very firmly at Cormac. Don't.
I know that I am different. I know that I do not need to breathe or eat. I know the sun is dangerous. I know what I need to survive.
Cormac is taking Thomas's warning under consideration. He will be careful when he says, "And do you know precisely what the seat of your power is?"
She kind of shakes her head.
That thing that allows you to exist night after night, without aging. Can you guess?
The blood.
He nods solemnly. It has more power than you know.
The proper term is vitae, from the Latin.
The blood of mortals becomes vitae when it enters the body of a Canaanite. It is transformed by an ancient magic. It has curative properties.
She seems to be looking at you with confusion, but she nods. I know that I need it, but I can't imagine him drinking from some person I brought in. That he would never accept that.
Not from some person, my dear.
Thomas just sighs and looks very disappointed.
Cormac raises an eyebrow, hoping that she gets it.
You mean
You let-
mine?
He doesn't affirm her discovery. He just waits to see what she does.
That's a lewd and disgusting thought. I could never do that to my own father. She looks revolted at the idea.
It's better that you don't. Trust me, from experience.
What if he became like me? I wouldn't want that for him, even if he is not long for this world.
It was just a thought. The girl doesn't want her father to die before he can be tended to. He's trying to give her a bit of peace of mind, if you will.
The trouble there is it becomes an addiction. Choosing not to let go of those we care about is...
Would it save him? Could I save my papa?
There's a very long and heavy sigh from Thomas, and he looks pointedly at Cormac.
Cormac suddenly realizes what he's done, and his face drops a bit. It doesn't quite work in that manner, girl. It might stave off the disease for a while, but he won't become like you are. That takes a concerted act of will.
And a very different process.
But it won't cure him, not now or ever.
My papa is strong. If we had more time, perhaps he could survive this.
What ailment is it that afflicts him?
He spits up blood. He wastes away.
And coughing fits.
She nods. It is difficult, distracting to be in the same room as him sometimes.
Can I make an intelligence academics to identify it as tuberculosis?
I would need medicine for that.
Fair enough.
But even without knowing, the treatment, you've heard of people having similar symptoms as that, and generally when it's something like coughing up blood, it's never something people really recover from usually.
Their consumption is not a pretty fate.
Her eyes are kind of going back and forth with this idea. I can't leave now. I have to at least try. I will stay here. I will tend to him, and I will try this until your nursemaid arrives.
Do you know if there are any of such a profession here or in Weymouth? Perhaps he would not have to wait as long.
There is a physician, there are nursemaids, but I don't have the coin to pay them.
Cormac grins.
I happen to not have that problem. Please, won't you take me to meet them?
Well, yes.
I'm going with you. This is too rich.
The double meaning of Cormac's statement is not lost on Thomas. He does smirk a bit.
All right. Amelia leads you back out, meaning to find a local physician, as it's still not terribly late in the evening, and we'll switch over to Robert and Elenid as they departed some time ago into the streets, which are still fairly active with passers-by and travelers. And Robert, you mean to go to the sheriff's office or to find the guard you spoke to?
The sheriff's office in particular.
Alright. It takes a little bit of looking around before you find this tower with enough signage and enough men around it that you determine this has to be some kind of office or station of importance. And you're stopped at what you imagine is more or less the entrance. You're not letting just anybody walk into the main command here. State your business.
I am here to see a tailor. Richard Taylor.
Sheriff's busy right now. Perhaps you, might wait a bit. Could be some time.
How long? I've sent him a letter. I hope he received it. He should be expecting me.
It seems like he's about to start up when you see a man coming around the corner of this hallway from inside, and exiting from the inside towards you. I know you. And you recognize actually the guard you spoke to before.
Indeed you do.
And he walks past this man who stopped you. Got some news for you. Why don't we go for a walk?
Very well.
What's she doing during this time? Is she just following along?
She is, for the most part, following along and keeping an eye out on the surroundings. Since, well, as far as they know, this city can't be trusted.
I spoke with the sheriff. He ain't taking anyone up there. Says it's best not to rile up a group that isn't causing problems. Not apparently bandits or brigands by his appraisal. He thinks they're probably some mercenary group. Setting up shop, might already have the writs they need. He figures not worth getting into bureaucratic hassle of figuring out if they do or don't. And if they're not definitely bothering anyone, he hasn't received any orders from the Earl of Dorset Beaufort, so he ain't moving. And what's more, I hear Beaufort has been imprisoned in the last month by the Lord Protector Richard of York. It could be quite some time before there's any movement at all.
Indeed. Well, so be it. The sheriff chooses a safe path. After hearing more of this group's and their numbers, I am hesitant to even go through with the plan tonight.
Well, that's all I got for you.
Very good, very good. Yeah, that is most helpful. I wonder, though, do you have a man that's well-versed in tracking?
Well, there's a few hunters that frequent the inn would need of you for a tracker.
I imagine such a large group would leave clues of their comings and goings. I obviously do not intend this tracker to confront them, but perhaps he could let us know where they plan on staying.
He nods. You one moment. Guillaume de Free. You might try him. He's a local hunter. Really good at it. Makes a lot of coin, I hear, from selling his hides and the meats. Although he's usually in bed by now, he leaves early in the morning.
And did you have anyone else in mind?
He kind of shrugs. Check the inn, there's always something there. Maybe there'll be a hunter. Done my part, don't ever say I didn't. Perhaps maybe you have more coin, I have more answers. And he smirks before turning back.
Well, regardless, you've been quite helpful, friend. And Robert will indeed not procure a coin purse as before, but just a few coins as a reward for the information this man has given. I do thank you for your information. And you did say they had the proper writs to be in the area?
I said the sheriff doesn't know and doesn't care enough to look into it.
Aha. Very well. I wonder, have you ever thought about being the sheriff?
He smirks. It's a lot of trouble for a town like this. Not with the pay. As it is, I get enough getting by with individuals like yourself. A little extra on the side, see?
I see. Well, tell me your name if it does come about that the sheriff has to vacate his office. Perhaps your name could come up for recommendation.
Roger Lumlin.
The pleasure, Roger.
And he nods, and looking around conspiratorially again, he departs from you, returning to the guard station.
Could I make a perception roll to see if there's anything amiss around here?
Sure. We do a perception alertness, standard difficulty.
If detail-oriented applies in this case, that would be...
5 successes. You don't see anything amiss right now. The 2 men that were standing guard, they were kind of watching the 2 of you suspiciously when this man, Roger, came to speak quietly. Otherwise, there's not a whole lot that looks out of place to you. You do see you're getting kind of a sideways glance from what looks like a priest who's making his way down the road from the church, but otherwise, he's not gawking at you. It's just kind of a strange look. He's passing on his way.
Well then, Robert turns towards Elenid.
Yes, if business is concluded here, we should likely return.
Perhaps this hunter could help me with something more. But for the most part, I believe business is concluded here.
Yes, we are getting a few odd stares.
Robert would look around, curiously.
You notice the same things, although by now the priest is further down the road. He's not looking over his shoulder or anything, he's just continuing further down.
Well, hopefully we've not done anything suspicious to warrant such looks.
Perhaps. But then again, there was the bribing of the god, and, well, how accepted that is usually varies from location to location.
Yes, well, either way, it is best to be off.
She nods and heads off in that direction.
Out of character, did this man also mention where the hunter lives, or just the name?
He kind of gestured generally down the road, and when you look closely, you can kind of see a little sign, and it looks like there's something of a building, like a home. Outside it, there is what looks like stands and posts where dried leather would hang and meats would hang, and it looks very common for. You've seen this in other towns. Hunters will post up in similar areas. It looks very similar to that. You probably meant that house.
Before we head back, let me speak with this hunter. At least, if I can rouse him from his sleep early in the night.
She stops and says, "Very well," and we'll wait for him to take the lead since he's the one with directions.
And he will begin walking to the hunter's cabin.
All right. And you make your way in that direction. And we're going to switch back to Cormac de Courcy and Thomas as they follow Amelia. And without making too much of a big scene, you are introduced to the local physician, and it's early enough in the evening where some people are going to bed, but it's still a little bit early, so it's not absurd to be talking to people at this hour. And so you are introduced to this man, and when the case of her father is brought up, she explains what's going on, and he tells you he will treat this man if the pay is right, that because of his time and other people needing him, that he can't just work for free, although perhaps you suspect there's a bit of greed in it too.
Well, Thomas is going to see what kind of pay he can provide.
Are you trying to go off of what you have on you, or are you thinking based off of your resources back home?
Well, about how long does this physician believe that he would need to, quote-unquote, treat this particular patient?
He anticipates at least 2 weeks, possibly longer, and that's just to stabilize him.
I'm gonna go with. We'll see what I can do with what I have on me,
Mm-hmm.
and if he needs more, he can send a letter.
Yeah, he basically explains to you that if he can't get this man better or stable in 2 weeks, it'll be because he's dead, because he's treated this before. Especially in people already at that level. I'll have you roll your resources difficulty 8 for the price he's talking about.
Cormac's not above chipping in here.
Okay. Then I will let you add your dice to this. Same difficulty.
No, I'm broke.
Alright, Thomas, you can just cover this. This will just about deplete what you have on you. It's not going to deplete your resources by any means, just what happens to be on you right now. But you could pay for it.
Well, let's see if I can't haggle him down a little bit, since he's basically asking for every coin Thomas has on him.
Sure. I'll have you roll manipulation, commerce, standard difficulty. Yeah, you're actually very successful. You managed to convince him that with your knowledge of the prices of a lot of what he's requesting and requiring and comparing prices to other physicians he's worked with, you managed to negotiate him down to half of what he's asking for. So you would still be fine. You'd be okay covering this and still having something left over.
And as a show of good faith, I'll restock your wares once I return to London.
He agrees to this, and Amelia seems very pleased and impressed with your willingness to negotiate for her father's sake. And a gentleman's agreement is made with a handshake for the moment, and the agreement that this physician will look over Amelia's father for the next 2 weeks.
And also a purse of shillings. For the moment.
Mm-hmm. And so he returns back to his home, and Amelia turns to you. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate what you are doing here. It means a great deal to me.
I'm sure. Will you be able to gather your things to leave then?
Yes, I have very little I need to bring with me. Perhaps just a cloak.
And the baubles you collected from the fire?
I suppose so. Are we leaving now?
As soon as our associates have returned, I suppose we can meet them back at the inn, since that's where they last saw us.
She nods.
I wouldn't turn down a bite to eat, either. So, let us break our fast and wait to be rejoined.
Hear, hear.
Right. So the the three of you, all, return to the inn as a group, and I'll take some hunting rolls. Is Cormac hunting?
Yes.
Okay. And how's Cormac hunting?
Using his normal charm and confidence.
Are you using your gifts, your disciplines?
For the same reason as before, no.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Then I will take a charisma empathy roll. Difficulty 6 tonight. Do you care if they're inebriated or not?
He'd actually prefer not after what happened the night before, but if he
Okay.
can't help it, then so be it.
If you higher difficulty to find someone who's just
God.
getting there. Oh.
Never mind. I botched.
You get wine thrown in your face, and everyone's very much attentive to you in a very negative way when you're trying to get some of these people to pay attention to you. You overdo it a little bit with your confidence and end up drenched with someone storming out. A few people laugh at you at the sight. I'm gonna have you roll self-control.
I was going to say, yeah, he's probably feeling pretty humiliated at this point.
Yeah, this is humiliating. I'm gonna have you roll self-control. It's gonna be difficulty 6. I almost forgot, but I didn't.
So 7 for me? Or 6 with the penalty?
I'm gonna say 6 with the penalty, all said and done. Oof.
Oh, barely holding on.
It's close. When you hear the laughter, you feel the beast rise up. Go ahead and describe Cormac as he's barely holding on right now.
He stands up with the wine drenched on him, looking around at the laughing faces. And his face takes on a very dark pallor indeed. And he looks at all of them. What the hell are you all laughing at?
that shuts them up very quickly.
And then he storms out of the building before he does something rotten.
Amelia seems frightened and seems to be staying out of your way. Thomas, you see this scene, and you see Cormac storm off.
He's a big boy. He can take care of himself.
Okay, you're gonna try and hunt out?
Well, first he's going to check with the barkeep or the innkeep and see if the driver of their
Carriage?
yes, that sought a room here. Give a vague description of the man. Well, accurate description of the man.
The barkeep reports to you that this individual, by your description, did seek a room, and he stayed there, and he hasn't been seen tonight. He must have left sometime during the day.
Thomas will go looking after he's fed. But he'll gesture for Amelia to join him, so he can maybe give a lesson or two.
All right. And how are you going about feeding tonight?
Fairly similar to how he was doing it the night before. He'll engage in conversation with a couple of folks.
All right. The challenge for you is going to be a little bit of figuring out which one of these is to your taste. That's going to add a little bit of a challenge here, so I'll have you roll your...
Perception alertness to see who has the most calloused hands.
I'll take that. Yeah. Difficulty 7. Yeah, you find a few individuals that you can tell that they're used to working the anvil, and you think they'd be a good target. And to smooth talk them into getting close enough to feed, I'll have you do charisma expression, standard difficulty. Another botch.
Somebody said expression. I don't have that.
Yeah. You get to talking to them and you slip up in your words. There's a misunderstanding. You don't insult them, but they take it as an insult, and they start to get a little bit hysteric about, you're talking about their crafts, and then they think you're insulting them, and then they think you're a competitor, and then they also storm off. A lot of people are leaving the inn, and the barkeep is not happy how many people are leaving the inn since you two showed up.
Thomas will shrug a bit. Guess we'll have to wait for London. And he'll head upstairs to check on his coachman.
I'll take a general perception investigation as you're searching the upstairs, searching the inn, and locating your man, your carriage driver. Through your search, you uncover a door that gives when you press it. It's already open, and although it's put together, you do spot some ruffled bedding and some signs of struggle, and a drop of blood.
God's balls. And he'll head back downstairs. Hopefully with Amelia in tow.
You taking Amelia up there to look for him too?
Well, if she didn't follow, he's not dragging her with, but...
She would have stayed downstairs, but as you come down and look a little bit more frustrated, she kind of approaches you. Did you find the carriage driver?
No. There seems to be a struggle. Maybe nothing, but I'd like to check on the coach all the same.
She nods a couple times, looking concerned. Is your companion going to be all right? He looks quite
No.
upset.
A little embarrassed. He'll need some time. Don't be too off-put by it. Happens to the best of us.
She nods. And following Cormac out, where is he going and how does he mean to deal with his anger?
He's heading away from civilization, that's for sure. Out beyond the village walls. Unless, of course, they're closed, then he'll follow the village wall on the inside.
They're closed, they can be open as needed, but if you're staying away from people, following the wall is not a bad idea.
He is seething right now, but in a way that only a canine can seethe. The beast rising and being pushed back, rising and being pushed back, his face contorting with the will of holding it at bay. He fears what would happen if anyone would cross his path right now. But when he has subsided the beast enough to maintain control, he'll head back.
Fortunately, this night you managed not to run into anyone. You kind of end up inadvertently in some of these people's backyards just because of the way this place is laid out. And a few people see you and just kind of go back inside, and you manage to avoid any confrontation. You head back in the direction of the inn, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Meanwhile, Eleanor and Robert, the two of you are heading in the direction of this hunter's house, as I recall?
Correct.
Okay. You do see that there's a little bit of smoke coming out of the chimney, and there's some faint lights from the windowsill. It looks like someone's awake right now.
Robert will knock on the door.
You hear a few footsteps on wood planks before the door opens. Can I help you tonight?
Perhaps you can. Are you Guillaume de Free?
I am, that is indeed me. What can I do for you tonight?
Pleasure to make your acquaintance. And Robert will reach his hand out to handshake with him and use presents.
He sees your hand come out, and he's not immediate to reach out and grab it. You see, he's kind of a tall, lanky man. He seems to have very quick movements. He has short facial hair. He looks fairly young, maybe late 20s or early 30s. And he grasps your forearm instead of shaking your hand, and you kind of feel a little bit of a squeeze as if he's checking something. Nice to meet you. But you didn't really say what brought you in here. And you're using awe?
Yes.
Alright. Charisma performance, I think it is. Difficulty 7.
Yes.
definitely get his attention. There's only really one person to affect, and you have affected him. And his eyes widen a little bit, and his jaw loosens just a little bit as he appraises you.
Good evening. My name is Robert Deva. I seek a skilled tracker, and I've heard you are one of the best of the village.
And what impression are you trying to give right now? Like honest, competent, dangerous?
Competent, as if he's known for being a leader.
Okay. Like inspiring?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Robert DeVere, you came to the right place. I am quite the tracker. Would you like to come inside? I've got latest kill tonight, roasting up right now. He pushes the door open. Man of your stature, I'm sure could use a nice meal. And he kind of peers past you. What's Eleanor doing?
Eleanor is, much like before, just keeping an eye on the surroundings.
Milady, would you like to come inside? Got some fine venison here.
I'm afraid we've already eaten, and it wouldn't do well to be gluttons this evening. But perhaps we could take some for the road.
Ah, that's the spirit. Why don't you come on inside? It's cold out.
And Robert will step inside, assuming that the fire is nothing present and dangerous.
You can see
Eleanor
from,
will accompany him.
the two of you can see as you're stepping inside. It's a big fire, but it's off to the side over the hearth at the end of the room, and there's meats cooking in here. If you decided to smell, you could definitely smell it's cooking meat in here, and the smoke going up the chimney and such. But it's no clear danger. You just have to give it a good berth of space. He closes the door behind you. So where are the two of you from? He goes about taking off some of these flanks and preparing them.
I've traveled from quite far. Lincoln, to be precise.
Ah, Lincoln. Haven't been up that way in a while.
You travel often.
I travel as much as I can. Couldn't ever stay in one place too long. It's not good for the game. Or the mind. He points up to his head.
Understood. Perhaps I can offer you an opportunity to travel. Let's see. I trust you've heard of the manor that burned down recently.
Well, of course. Everyone around here has been talking about that.
I believe I've gotten a scent of the perpetrators of this crime. A heinous deed, to be certain. Unfortunately, they are very well armed, and there is a large group of them, perhaps mercenaries, who they've done this deed at the behest of. I have no clue.
Ah. Who hired you?
I'm here on my own accord, to an extent. I am looking into the business dealings of a close relative.
So some kind of Good Samaritan adventurer type?
No, I wouldn't put it as such. One of the men killed was quite dear to my family. So it is quite personal as you see it.
And he's finally done fixing up some of these pieces of meat, and he brings a couple plates down and sets them down, one for you and one for Eleanor. Why don't you give that a try? Let me know what you think.
right. She will pop a blood point so it'll make her able to eat food. At least for the moment. And do so in order to keep up appearances.
Alright, the trick is gonna be not gagging it up immediately. So you can try. And as you try, I'm gonna have you make a self-control roll, difficulty 7. You are able to keep it down. Take a bite of this, and it tastes like wood, like a mushy wood. That's what you compare it to. It has this terrible taste, but you keep it down to your credit, and you get a couple bites to go down your dead esophagus into what remains of shriveled organs and bowels, where it sits. And you can feel it like a lump. It just sits there. You're suddenly aware of this thing that's sitting inside of you in your abdomen. And it's warm and wet, and it's this horrible sensation. But you're keeping it down. What do you think, my lady? Not bad.
Not bad at all.
I can dry out quite a bit for you, but can't do it for free, you see?
Well, at this time, just a cut of your meat would be sufficient. But thank you for your hospitality.
Do you really mean to go after this mercenary group on your own, huh?
Not on my own, but I need information.
What kind of information? He starts taking a bite of the meat he put down that you're not eating.
I need to know they came to this area and they've left by now. Perhaps you could follow their tracks. But, of course, I'm not asking for you to... If I must say, they are known for being quite alert at night. If you agree to this task at all, of course, I will see you paid well for this task. You understand?
He nods. He's got half his mouth full. I understand.
And I'm sure it will help you to track them only in the day. You understand this would be quite dangerous at night for this particular group. They have one of the best night watchmen. In fact, that's how they got wind of us, my group, and took off before I could elect any assistance from the local sheriff.
He kind of follow. He finally swallows his bit. Sounds dangerous. I'm in.
I had a feeling you were that type of man.
He smiles at that. How am I going to get back to you when I find out where they're going? What if they don't stop?
I have my estate in Lincoln. Of course, my servants would be able to relay anything to me. But I just suddenly realized you probably do not have a way to get a message out to me.
Well, I got my house here. I got my ride. But, a little short in the way of messengers. Of course, I suppose I could track him down until something happens, and make my way out to Lincoln, track you down, let you know what's going on.
I'm thinking of something, perhaps more long-term. Because, of course, if this group is as well-armed as I believe they are, it will take some time to gather men. Or perhaps looking at something that would take months.
It's gonna be a steep cost, you know.
I think, at this moment, to satisfy this, I would be willing to pay the price.
Can't lie to a man like you. Job sounds pretty interesting. With all the political issues I hear going on, I don't imagine it's probably related to something like that.
Indeed. There are quite many scandals at court.
Well, then it sounds like your real trouble is gonna be finding me once I find them.
Very true. And I wonder, who else inhabits the woods?
Looks at you with incredulity, as if he can't believe you're asking that. Well, you've got the bears and the coyotes, wolves. Be a little bit more specific than that, Master DeVere.
Fine jest. No, I speak of craftsmen, perhaps? Some that would spend much time out there.
Well, now that you mention it, I know a couple other hunters. They keep lodges out there. Some in the Nottingham Forest up in the north.
Are you known for keeping at least a communication network going?
He smirks. No, we're not all that formal that you might be used to. No, we got lodges up there, but if we find one of another of our trade, it's it's a rare occurrence.
I see, not reliable. I was kind of hoping perhaps you could let someone know of any progress you've done, and I could easily seek them out. And perhaps you could, in turn, get information from them at some point.
He kind of looks around, rubbing at his chin in thought. I do know a guy. Might be able to help out. How about I take on a contract of sorts? I'll follow this group for you for the next 3 odd months. And I'll check in with him. You need to get a hold of me. I'll have him let me know.
Very good. Sounds perfect.
That's probably the best we're gonna have. This is a pretty mobile job, as you might imagine.
Without a doubt. And once again, I must stress, if you have an option to err on the side of caution, take that.
I wouldn't be very good at my profession if I wasn't pretty cautious myself.
Well, Mr. DeFree, I am pleased to hear this.
Call me Guy. Nobody calls me Mr. DeFree.
Guy it is. Robert gives him a smile.
And he nods, smiling back. What's Elena doing during this exchange?
Can I judge his emotions at all, see if anything's off?
Absolutely. Perception, empathy, standard difficulty. Do you have any specialties relevant here?
I did not roll the dice for detail-oriented, so I don't... because I didn't think that would apply to empathy.
Still, 3 successes. You don't see or perceive anything out of the ordinary. He just seems to be a very, active, kind of fast-paced guy. He seems pretty ready to trust people, clearly, and pretty willing to buy people at their word. And he's interested in making some coin and having an adventure. That's your assessment of him.
Okay, she looks a little more relieved after that. The entire arm-grabbing thing at the door had her mildly concerned about this man.
It's not terribly uncommon for people to sometimes grasp the forearm instead of a handshake, especially when strangers, especially kind of low-class strangers, are meeting other people and they don't know them, to check for blades. It's more of a sign of his station in life and what he expects out of other people than maybe anything else. And you would know enough about etiquette to judge that. Well, I suppose I'm gonna need some payment then, if I'm gonna be looking at doing this starting next dawn.
Indeed. And Robert will begin going over payments. Of course, he'll give this man a fair price. Could he do some sort of commerce check to find an adequate price to cover this man's expenses while he's on this task for him?
Sure, I'll have you make an intelligence commerce, standard difficulty. And let me look at your sheet. Yeah. You think that you have enough resources to keep this man gainfully employed for 3 months, but to do it much longer might be a little bit more difficult. And working through prices, hunters aren't paid very well, but the task you're putting him up to is a little bit more dangerous. You end up compromising on paying him a little bit more than the average hunter, which stretches you just a little bit, but it's just one man and it's just 3 months, so it's not going to be outside of your ability right now.
Very well, Guy. I believe this could be business for the night.
All right, Master DeVere. I'll see about finding you in 3 months, perhaps.
And of course, and I will meet your friend where you've specified.
He nods, and he goes about setting some directions for you that you can find him, his contact, your mutual contact.
Satisfied, Robert will give a nod of acknowledgement as he begins to bid the hunter farewell for the night and a pleasant sleep.
Yes, Elena will get up, excuse herself, and head out.
Yeah, the whole time you're walking, you feel this little piece of something kind of rolling around in your dead intestines.
Yeah, she's booking it for the edge of town or some shadowy area where she can hurl without being seen. Well, without a crowd around her, at least.
Yeah, there's not a crowd outside, so I mean, you could do it outside if you really wanted to.
No, I'm not doing it in front of the man's house.
Okay, give me another self-control roll. Standard difficulty. You need 5 successes to clear it for the scene, so... basically just don't. Okay, yeah. You're able to hold it together a little bit longer, just long enough to get, you know, a ways away from his house, away from anybody, and you puke this thing right back up. Undigested. It looks very much like how it went in. Along with a little bit of red-hued bile.
Of course, Robert will follow Elle in it and make sure she's fine.
Yep. After puking back up, she wipes her mouth and looks around. What all is around here?
You're behind a row of houses. You hear some dogs barking not too far away, and off in the distance there's some people going back inside. You're not too far from the city wall.
Alright.
I must admit, that was mighty brave of you.
She gave a slight smile and said, well, the way I see it, there's only one of 2 reasons why someone would grab your forearm. Either they're checking to see what we are, or they're checking for weapons. It was more of a way to make certain.
I shall keep that in mind for the future. I did not even consider that it could be used to check my status of life.
Now then, she says as she strains herself back up and glances back around. We should likely get something to eat before we meet up with our companions.
Quite right. Since I've been leading the way most of this, perhaps you would like to do so in turn.
Yes, I shall. Are there any alleyways or anything that people seem to be going in, or anything that constitutes alleyways in this relatively smallish city?
It's really not even a city. It's a pretty small town. There aren't really alleyways. There's this main drag of road and a lot of houses that go down it. There's the church. It's not really busy enough where people are just kind of going down alleyways. It's a little bit harder to hunt out here in these streets. This isn't like London or even Bristol. It's not a true city.
Alright, the only place that we know has food is either the inn, unless we want to poach from the local farms.
I wonder if the others have cleaned out the inn by now.
Perhaps. Though eating from animals isn't exactly seeming appetizing.
Not at all. Perhaps we should just go to the inn and grab what we can to eat from there.
Yes, that is likely the best option.
And that is where we'll head next.
Yep.
Alright. And we are almost 2 hours in, not quite, but I think this is a good breaking point before we get back together. So I'll take us into an early break right now, and we'll get back together in 10 minutes as you all rejoin at the inn. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Except Thomas is going to the stables.
Except for Thomas, who's going to the stables.
Very well. 10 minutes.
That was a weight off.
A what?
He's asking how your shit was.
Yeah.
I ate some spicy sausage.
Coming back to haunt you?
No, it burned my mouth. Like just
Okay.
now. Like just now I ate it.
And here I thought you were answering his question.
Oh no. No. Okay. Serious face. We're all here, yeah?
Mostly.
Cormac?
Why do you always assume it's me?
I haven't heard your voice.
Well, to be fair, it was typing.
Thought maybe his mic was broke or something. I don't know. Okay. So we return to the scene. We're focusing in on the inn as Cormac has returned after Tom left to go check on the carriage. And Cormac, you see that Elenid and Robert have returned.
Tough crowd in there, he says, still looking a little bit pained.
Elened looks around and... Exactly how full is the inn after their shenanigans?
It's not very full at all. A lot of people left. Bartender looks unhappy. Innkeep.
Robert raises an eyebrow. What happened?
Cormac looks down at the front of his doublet, which is covered with wine. Use your imagination.
Well,
They're lucky I was in a fairly good mood tonight. I almost lost my temper, if you know what I mean.
indeed. And they were quite lucky.
If the two of you are looking to have a bite, I won't try to stop you. But be careful. Thomas was having trouble too. It's a very rough crowd. Well, what's left of it?
Yes, we should have a bite to eat before leaving. I think our business is concluded here.
That's if Thomas has found his driver.
The driver has gone missing.
I'm not certain if that's the case, but he left here in a hurry. Thomas, I mean.
Then perhaps let's try to get some food as soon as possible, lest we have to rush off to save a driver.
Alright, how are you going about hunting?
Well, Robert will enter the establishment and just look around for a group that looks like they'd be pleasant company.
It's fairly sparse in here, and the ones who do are now looking at everyone who comes in with a suspicious eye.
Suspicion. Well, he certainly will still head towards a group. Actually, if a group is eyeing him suspiciously, he'll actually walk over towards them and be friendly.
Okay. Roll your charisma empathy. Difficulty 8.
I'm assuming they at least hear his voice before they Start shunning him.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're giving you weird looks on the way in, but...
He's going to try and make a good first impression for these people, these fine folk.
Okay.
And his merit should come into play here.
Surprisingly, you managed to soften them up with your charm. You just have this natural way about you of disarming and de-escalating a situation, and putting people at ease with your cheerful self-confidence. And you have them talking you up. They're complaining, almost exasperated at these other two who were in here earlier.
Ugh, they sounded like such bores. And in this group, well, he will invite Elenid if she'll accept to join them as they're carousing.
Yes, Elenid will accept such an invitation.
Okay, I'll take an appearance etiquette from you, Elenid. Difficulty 5, since Robert eased them up. Buttered them up, I should say. Alright, you blend in fairly well, much due to Robert's helping you. And the two of you are able to carouse this small group with some success. And how much do the two of you mean to feed tonight once you have the opportunity?
How many do we have per between us? Is it 2?
I'm gonna say there's a group of 4 here.
Okay. From 2 of them, Robert will take 2 points. So.
Yep, 2 points each.
Okay. It'll take time. You know, this whole group, it's not easy to just get that close to someone. But you find opportunities over the next hour where people are getting up and they're just moving around, getting drinks. Some people are going out to take a leak, and here and there you find ways to get alone, and they're comfortable enough around you that you are able to do that, and you may each take 2 each from each person. Alright, and once fed, what do the two of you mean to do?
Robert will bid the group farewell for the evening and begin heading outside to regroup with Cormac.
They're all quite heady after the two of you drain a couple from each of them, but they take it well, and you get a few cheers and goodbyes.
Elenid will excuse herself as well, and does she remember if the stable boy is on his own, or if there's a clear line of sight from anywhere to the stable boy?
Actually, because the two of you went to the, I guess I should say, the guard captain quarters, the station, you would have seen there was a post, looked like a wooden post, and from it was hanging a boy. And neither of you would have known who that was, but you would have seen a boy hanging from it who looked fairly young. And pinned to his chest is this sign that says thief.
Alright. Well, after she gets up, excuses herself, and makes her way out, she will check the stables to see if there's anyone back there, so our
Irish friend can potentially get a bite to eat if anyone's tending the stables.
I'm sorry, you're going to the stables to find people to feed on?
No, I'm more seeing if the stables are proper feeding ground, and if anyone tending the stables would be able to do so alone.
There's a couple men at these stables now, and actually transitioning over there since that's where Thomas was going. We'll catch up with him. Thomas, as you're approaching the stables some time ago, actually close to an hour ago, since that's about how long it took Cormac and Elenid to, or I should say, Robert and Elenid to feed. When you're approaching, you see that there are two men there. The boy you were speaking to the other night is gone. The carriage there, though.
Thomas is going to go check on the carriage and make sure it's unmolested.
Yeah, you open it up and you see that the chest and the axe are actually still there, covered in blankets as you left them.
Okay. Then he's going to go, recover them and then go and inquire of the men. The driver of this carriage was staying at the inn. I'm concerned about him. You wouldn't happen to have seen him come to check on the horses.
No one like that. No carriage drivers come by. I can recall. Kind of looks to his companion as if for acknowledgement, who nods.
Do you work the stables in that case?
I do a bit of this and that. I had the stable boy up in quite fouled up with some of the nobles the other day, and he kind of draws a hand across his neck. So, I'm here.
Filthy business. Is this guy the only guy here?
It's two men. Most of this one man talking to you, and his another man is going to be working with him to tend to the stables.
What did you say your normal occupations were?
Labor. Wherever I can find work.
And the other man just doesn't answer.
Are you asking... It looks like you're asking both of them?
Right.
Oi. Whatever gets coin, right?
Fair enough. Would you mind then yoking up the horses that came in with that carriage? We're about to depart. And he's going to go and find Amelia.
The two men nod and set about prepping the carriage for departure. As you leave, returning to the inn, but as you're leaving, Elenid comes and intercepts you.
I was actually looking for Amelia, not heading back to the inn. I just want to make sure I'm keeping tabs on her.
Amelia remained at the inn. She was packing up some of her belongings, the
That's
baubles.
right. That's right. As I was.
So as you turn to leave these men, you're intercepted by Elenid, who is approaching the stables.
Are we about ready to depart then?
Is everything present and accounted for?
All but the driver, but we can manage without him. I see no reason to tarry and wait for him.
It's a waste, but yes, it does make sense. We do need to leave here.
She glances over. Can she see the two men standing here standing over at the stables from here?
Yeah, you can see a short distance away. They look like they're, opening the gates, getting the horses reined up, and getting this carriage secured.
Alright, with that, she'll turn and say, well, shall we go meet up with the others?
Is Cormac all right? He was in quite a state when I left.
He seems to be still a little bit ruffled on the matter, but he seems to have calmed down enough. Oh,
Thomas glances over his shoulder at the men dealing with the horses. I think we might be able to massage his ego a little bit, at least.
Alright, and the two of you are continuing on back to the inn?
Yep.
Okay. And outside the inn, you see Cormac sitting on a barrel.
Robert's there keeping him company.
Now you're busy. You're inside.
Oh, am I? Okay.
Actually, no, at this point, Ellen is back. So yeah, you're wherever you want to be.
And yeah, he's keeping Cormac company.
So yeah, the group of you come together. Robert and Cormac sitting together on barrels.
Are we ready to go? The sooner we get out of this village, the better.
Oh, and there's good news for you, too. Because as we're going, there's only 2 individuals at the stable.
And
Well, if you weren't able to catch a meal here, you might be able to get one there.
I'll be alright, I think. I've mucked things up enough for one night.
Don't feel so bad. You aren't the only one who had a rough time of it.
So I told them. Did you find your driver?
No, but I'm in no mood to wait. There was signs of a struggle. Either he was taken by someone looking for something, or he buggered off on his own. If he's in one piece, he has coin enough to purchase his own horse.
And that's not Terry. Where's Amelia? Still inside?
I'll go fetch her.
I may as well go grab my horse while this is happening.
Thomas is going to head in, and on his way past, he'll mention to the innkeep, if my damn fool driver shows up, tell him the carriage will be waiting for him in Weymouth. He can take it back to London from there.
He just kind of gives you the stink eye.
And he'll go down to check on Amelia. She's taking an awful long time to pack a few bottles.
You actually run into her on her way up, and she has a cloak on and a little knapsack over her shoulder of items that are kind of jingling around.
Ready then.
She nods.
And he'll lead her back out the door towards the carriage, which should be just about ready.
Yep. The group of you eventually arrive to this carriage, which is prepped and ready to go, and Amelia sets about putting her small knapsack into the luggage area, and she isn't first to go in. She seems a bit bashful about going in first, but looks around at each of you. Where are we going?
London, by way of Weymouth. I expect we'll be able to book passage on board a ship and be home not the next night, then the night after.
Home. London hasn't been home to me in a long while.
I speak only for myself.
Well, that may be so, but at the same time, we can also conduct some business there, considering there's a certain associate that needs to be talked to.
And in the meanwhile, we can give Amelia the best education we can. It seems, my dear, you sorely need it.
She looks to you and frowns a bit.
Thomas will step up into the driver's seat, take the reins.
Take no offense, my dear, I don't mean that you're uneducated. Simply uneducated in the ways of our kind.
As this dispute is going on, Elenid will get inside the carriage.
Amelia nods a couple times and quietly follows after Elenid to join her on the bench.
And Cormac will climb up last, shutting the door behind.
And Robert, soon enough, your horse is freed, and you also mount up. And the group of you set off from the town of Dorchester, +1. You mean to ride south for Weymouth?
Yep.
All right.
I will be right back. My dog is currently acting sick.
Oh. The path from Dorchester to Weymouth is about 8 miles. Will not take you terribly long to cross that. Let's say going at carriage speed, you'll make it tonight just. You'll have some time. You have a little bit of time if you're going by carriage. Probably like an hour or two once you get there. It's just a slower speed, riding at night. You can't quite see as far, and it's just a little bit more dangerous to travel. But it's not very far, and you travel without any great hiccups along the way down the road, down this path, really. This dirt path that leads you to the small port town of Weymouth, which likewise it's even smaller than Dorchester, but you can see as you're walking up the last stretch into town, off on your left, you can see the coast of Weymouth Bay and the waters, and you can start to see the change of the light in the sky. It is getting late by the time you do reach Weymouth. There is a small church visible on the line, on the cityscape or the townscape of Weymouth. But again, much like Dorchester, there's not much here. There's wooden palisade walls, and mostly it's focused around this port, which at a distance you can see a few cogs, not many, but a few docked in port, and many other smaller vessels, smaller ships. And you make your way into Weymouth, or let into the front gate. What do you mean? Where do you mean to go once you're inside?
Thomas is going to pull the carriage in at the stable and then make for the harbor master.
Okay.
Make for the harbor specifically, if
Right.
there's a harbor master to be found. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, the irony is that you get here late enough that it's actually starting to become early. It's about 4 in the morning, and the harbor master's up and working already before the sun has even come up. And so he sees you approach, and with intent. You're bringing the whole carriage over?
He was going to drop the carriage off first, but this works actually. Yeah, we'll bring the carriage right to the port.
Yeah, it's just how it kind of works out. Like the road kind of goes south into Weymouth, and then it comes pretty close to the water as it cuts west again, and then further south along the Ended Peninsula. And so you do end up getting basically to the wharf, to the docks, while still being on carriage. When you dismount and you see what you have to imagine is at least a dock worker, if not the harbor master.
Hello, sir. What ships have you at port?
Early morning to you, sir. Got a couple cogs in here. What business is it of yours?
We're looking to book passage. These are trading vessels, yes?
Oh, we got, and he kind of lets go of some rope he was working on and looks over. Got, one trading vessel, one ferry, and, private ship.
May I inquire as to the owner of the private ship and the trading vessel?
Trading ship is, I think the Worshipful Company of Mercers, and the private I'm not aware. Have to check the log. Have you business?
With them specifically, no. Simply thought I'd provide a bit of professional courtesy with the passenger fare.
Local charter. They, heading back, actually, from tomorrow morning, actually. This morning, I suppose.
Anyone bound for London?
Let me look at the map. Be making a stop at the Isle of Wight. We'll be heading east over to Hastings and then to London.
Aye, that'll do.
Probably won't reach London for 2, possibly 3 days.
It's a damn sight better than by carriage. You said it's a private charter?
Oh no. There's a private cog. The local ferry is they operate right out of here of Weymouth.
And that's the ferry schedule you've given me.
He nods.
Any other passengers booked?
I think a few. Again, I have to check the log to be sure. I didn't memorize it, you see.
So long as there's room, it'll do.
Only a few.
I expect quarters below deck then.
Not a great deal of room beneath deck, but,
We are a bit late then. So you say. I expect the only quarters left should be below deck.
there's some space, but, it's cramped.
As it ever is. It'll serve. Room for 5.
If you don't mind being very cramped.
I've made the passage to and from Cordona a number of times under worse conditions.
Well, then this should be fine. I'll take the fee up front and see that they're recompensed.
Have you anyone to steward a few parcels?
A few parcels.
Maybe a bit more than a few. It's fine if you don't. I can manage on my own.
You may have to manage on your own for that.
Fair enough. And he'll go ahead and pay the man.
Alright, I'll take resources roll, standard difficulty for you. Pay for the fare of 5 people. Oh yeah, you definitely have the coin for this. He takes the coin purse from you and opens it up, kind of flips through a few coins. Pleasure doing business with you, sir.
If you'll simply direct us to the ramp then.
He's kind of fiddling with this knot and this rope in his hands as he points with the rope lazily behind him. And you can see the ramp leading to the cog.
He's not going to be in a great hurry, but he is moving with a purpose back towards the carriage. All booked. It'll be a 3-day journey, but we'll have a private quarters below deck.
You are a marvel, sir.
Robert will perk up at hearing private quarters. Ah, fine job.
Don't get too happy.
So when is the ship set to arrive?
It's already arrived. He'll point back. at
No,
the
I
ship
mean
dock.
set to arrive in London.
Apparently the schedule puts them at port in London in 3 days, possibly 2, if the winds are right.
All right.
And he'll reach in and pull out the chest, and then fold the axe into a blanket and move aside so Elenid can lift it.
Yep, Elenid will indeed lift the axe.
Have you ever been on a ship before, Amelia?
No, I haven't.
The English Channel is very beautiful this time of year. I think you're going to enjoy it.
She seems unsure, but steps out of the carriage and starts getting her belongings together. I worry for my papa.
He's under the best of care that can be arranged.
I'm a foul daughter for leaving him.
You are a fair daughter for leaving him. He would be under a good deal of threat if you were to remain.
She's silent at that, but seems to carry about and doesn't speak of it again.
Cormac chooses not to engage her on this again and grabs some of the baggage to carry.
Thomas will holler at the harbor master. The carriage you can keep. The horses, do with as you will.
We're not taking the horses?
There's no room. It's a passenger ferry.
It seems a damn shame.
You're welcome to drive the carriage back yourself if you like. We'll see you in a fortnight.
There's no need to be acting the maggot, Thomas. I was merely commenting that they've been fine steeds.
Thomas chuckles.
I suppose I will have to find arrangements for the care of my steed.
Make it quick. The dawn's upon us.
Saying nothing further, Robert will begin riding towards the stables.
Alright, soon enough you reach the stables, and there's a stable master there who's looking at you a bit odd as you ride up. Can I help you?
Aye. What's the longest you've ever watched the horse for?
He kind of smirks at you. I've watched horses for months at a time.
Sounds adequate. I'd like to register this fine steed here.
Alright. You got the coin.
Robert will check his belongings.
Alright, you've been dipping into your pockets of coin quite a bit since you had access to your own resources. I'll have you roll your resources, difficulty 8. Obviously, this is not something you can spend willpower on. You can't will money into existence, unfortunately. Nope, you're dried up. You don't have the coin for it. You've spent it in too many places.
Well, perhaps it is time to find this one a new home.
You're gonna leave it.
I mean to sell it.
He looks the horse up and down. Aye, I'll take it. How much you want?
The fair price. Do see to it that this fine creature has a good home.
Make a wits commerce roll, standard difficulty. You negotiate a very attractive price for your horse, which has been very well cared for, and it's a very good steed. And you end up with a few gold coins at the end of it, at the exchange, end of the exchange.
Satisfied with this, Robert will begin heading towards the docks, saying farewell to his horse.
He doesn't say anything back.
He'll pet it longingly as he leaves.
It kind of moves away at your touch, but otherwise, no reaction. And you leave with a few more gold coins in your pocket than you had before, returning to the cog. And you see
Indeed,
that,
you'll see.
right now, you see when you approach that it looks like most of the stuff is being hauled in and moved in. Everyone's still moving about on the deck. There's still a few things left to move on, but it's just about done.
Since we're back at the boat, Thomas is going to seek out the captain.
You find the captain up near the helm. He's talking with one of these sailors, and when you find him,
He'll offer out a hand. Long Tom Chamberlain. Pleasure to meet you.
Captain Wright, welcome aboard. He shakes your hand.
My traveling companions and I have just booked passage. I wonder if you might see to it that we're not disturbed during the day. We've ridden all night.
As you say. He nods.
Appreciate it. Do feel free to call on me if you need a hand. I'm not an inexperienced sailor myself.
Right. You'll excuse me, my lord. He nods to you and walks past to further prepare the ship for departure.
And he'll rejoin his cadre and go down below decks to stow their gear.
Okay. And the group of you see down below deck, it is indeed very cramped down here. Cogs are not large ships at all. There is enough space for the 5 of you and your luggage, but only just.
Thomas is going to use the very large and very heavy iron chest to bar the door.
All right.
Is it at least light proof, as far as we can tell? It should be watertight, so...
Yeah, it is watertight. Yeah, I'll say it's light proof. I was wondering if there's going to be a little circle window, but there wouldn't be. Not this far below.
Was why he wanted it.
Yeah. No, it's sunproof for sure. Unless someone, pokes a hole in the ship or something.
Shh. Cannons fire. Everyone dies.
I mean, that absolutely could happen. But right now, sunproof. Definitely. You have a little bit of time to talk before the sun rises, though, as the group of you gather your stuff, and there isn't even enough room for all of you to lay down. There is a single cot, and most of the wooden floorboards left over, you're standing in. It's almost like it's basically like a 6x6 space. You could line up like sardines, and you would still be cramped.
Thomas looks like a pig in shit.
Robert is none too pleased, and he groans at seeing the sight of this place.
Ah, memories. Just about takes me back to my childhood. You know, I was 15 the first time I was on board ship.
Oh, Ned exhales and goes, well, we have to do what we have to do.
We were squeezed in so tight, we barely had enough room for this cargo, much less the crew. Damn sight better coming back. Lighter load.
This is unfortunate that this is not the case.
Thomas is deeply amused. But he snuggles his shoulders into a corner and tries to, and makes the most comfort he can.
All right, what's Cormac doing during this time?
Cormac doesn't seem too put out by the surroundings. It's not like the rest of them snore or anything. So he'll find himself a comfy wedge and wedge himself into it. He won't know the difference anyway once the sun comes.
And Elenid?
Leonard will find a suitable location for herself. Well, as suitable as sleeping on the floor of a ship can be, but...
Thomas will gesture for both Amelia and Elenid to make the best of the cot. It's actually far more comfortable than it looks.
Amelia smiles and agrees. She takes the cot, sitting down on it.
Elenid will politely decline.
Is Robert gonna fight for the cot?
He'll look questioningly at Elenid at her refusal.
It's a one-person cot, and... well, with all she's been through lately, she probably needs it more than I do.
Thomas looks approvingly.
Yes. It is always toughest when family are sick, dying. In that case, Robert will make a roll to see if he will not fight for this.
Let's see here.
It's in my notes.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'll let you roleplay this one. You don't have to roll for it.
Okay. Then Robert will relent the cot to Amelia for this circumstance.
Come on down here, Devere, you right punks. I'll keep you warm.
Robert just smiles at the comment and gets as comfortable as he can.
All right. Soon enough, you hear the calls from up ahead, or above, I should say, as the ship is prepared to depart, and most of you lose consciousness right around that time as the sun's rays cast you all into sleep as you depart. Over the next 3 nights, the group of you have some time, at night at least, to discuss and plan and decide what you'll do next. It's a several nights trip as you sail east along the coast and through the channel. Do any of you mean to bring anything up to the others?
She will remind them that an ally of the Cappadocian they intend to speak to is, well, while not directly in the city, has connections in the city.
I will be sure to ask for this title after we've had a good wash and a fresh set of clothes.
Cormac is actually going to take this time to teach Amelia everything that he can, especially about the traditions as they exist now, and some of the basics of her blood.
Sure, I'll take a charisma expression from you, standard difficulty. It's not so much the depth of knowledge you need to teach her as being a teacher and getting it across to her in a way that she'll grasp. You make a lot of progress during this time. Even just in a few nights, you're able to teach her quite a bit about what she is and what she can do. And she seemed to take to you a little bit more easily than the others. You've noticed, you and Robert at least, you think you're making some progress on teaching her a bit more about what she is.
Hume will make it quite clear to her that the silence of the blood is the most important of all, especially since they're coming to a big city now. She could cause endless trouble by leaving a trail.
She does admit to you during their talks that she spoke very frankly to her father about what she is and what she's been dealing with, and that through their discussions, her father became disgusted with her and claimed that she was a spawn of the devil and that he refused to engage with her.
He'll try to assuage her guilt by telling her the story about his own brother and how that went when his brother found out what he was. And that's why it's so important never to reveal it to any mortal. Unless they're a ghoul.
Which, of course, you explain to her that what all that means, and after you have time to explain that, she ends up being glad that she did not feed her father any blood. But she does ask you, about that last battle, what happened to your brother and what happened afterwards.
He'll be very curt about that they all died, and that he moved on with his life. if she's at all perceptive, of course, he is deeply wounded by it, but he won't share that with her.
She seems to take the hint and lets it go. What's Robert doing during this time as he's aboard the ship?
He's listening to the stories, taking interest in Cormac's in particular. He'll add his own comments of the sorrows of. He'll mention the sorrows of his early life, where he once had a family, but it all was taken away due to his condition. To get a link between Cormac and Amelia.
And you go into all the grisly detail of what happened?
Sure. Since Cormac told pretty much everything, he won't hold back here either.
So Cormac is here and Amelia is talking. Is this the kind of conversation that would interest Elened or Thomas?
Elened would listen, but she has nothing to add herself, as she doesn't have any sap story regarding her family.
Thomas would chime in agreement when Amelia is glad to not have ghouled her father. Indeed, my father wasn't quite that bright. He chose to ghoul his spouse, my mother.
Amelia looks sad and surprised at hearing all these stories, particularly Robert's. I had no idea there was so much pain involved in this existence.
I don't know. I've had a fair time of it. Wouldn't call it painful. Some disappointments. But a good deal more successes and celebrations in my case.
Does your mother still live?
Indeed. Although now she is bound to my sire.
I see. Perhaps other than the loss of your father, a tragedy. It does not sound like you've had many sorrows.
That, and one other, but I won't trouble you with those details.
It is as you wish.
You lost your entire family, and yet you are still so cheerful. How do you do that? Amelia looks to you, Robert.
I try to keep on what little I have left. What little humanity, I suppose. This cursed condition.
Are you angry with your grandsire? for what he did.
I am conflicted, to say the least.
She seems to fall silent after that. She watches the waves. Does anyone else bring anything up on this trip?
Thomas would append, it's not the condition. However, there are some secondary circumstances that make living forever challenging.
I just hope it gets easier then.
Indeed it does. Eventually you learn how to play the game.
What about the ones who don't? The ones that wassail? And she looks to Cormac as if needing assurance.
Each of us handles this life a little bit differently. Some of us learn to cope with our sorrows, and he'll look to Robert and Thomas and himself. Those who've shared their stories anyway. And some choose to fall to it. Once that happens, they're lost forever.
And yet others find a different path to walk, and a different way to view the world. And Thomas slowly turns his head towards Elliot.
Yes, admittedly. After I was brought into my new life, I separated myself from it, from my previous one.
I had such an opportunity. It seemed far more trouble than it was worth.
It was no trouble at all. They didn't even attempt to look for me as far as I'm concerned.
I thought you were speaking morally. Carry on.
But by doing so, I was able to entirely focus myself on my studies and my own exploits. I'm afraid I don't really have much in the way of woes as far as family is concerned.
Amelia listens to each of you in turn, as if taking lessons from different tutors at different times. But beyond these talks, the trip is fairly uneventful as you pass from the port out of Weymouth. You pass past the Isle of Wight, Hastings, and you don't stop at Dover, although you see Dover Castle during the night you're passing it. And on the third night, you find that your ship has already been docked. They must have docked sometime during the day or perhaps the morning. And I'll need 3 blood points off of everyone as you awaken and find the ship is docked in the port of London.
Thomas would awaken with a very broad smile and a deep inhalation of the very, very familiar smells of the Thames. He'll dislodge the chest and step out.
Ned will pick up the wrapped axe and head out, stare a bit at the city. This is far larger than any I've ever been in.
You have no idea. Welcome to London, lords and ladies.
Indeed. Prepare to feast your eyes and your palate.
A magnificent place.
Out of curiosity, is the ship pulled into port at a place familiar to Thomas? Such as... we'll just leave that.
It's familiar. When you pull in, or rather when you step out to see where your ship has been pulled in, there are many ships docked across this port, and you can see that it's as expansive as you recall. The boardwalk goes almost out of sight in both directions. The city of London, since a century ago, has expanded well beyond its walls. As before, there were only homes here and there beyond the walls. Now there's sprawling towns outside of it, and the cityscape line is dotted with high-rising buildings and churches. St. Paul's Cathedral stands out among them all, but it's quite an impressive and perhaps daunting view to some of you, and Amelia just looks bewildered at the size of it all. It's easily the greatest thing that she's ever seen, and the largest city perhaps some of you have seen. As even behind you, across the other side of the Thames, there are towns on the other side of the water. It's all dense and populated. Ships go up and down, even at this hour.
My, how it's grown.
On the dock, are there any dock workers Thomas might recognize, out of curiosity?
Not immediately, although it's not very surprising. There's so many throngs of different dock workers that it's easy to miss one or two.
Stepping down off the gangplank, he'll holler over at one of the stewards or one of the men moving boxes. Oi! Do you know Liam Cunningham? Works at the Chamberlain warehouses.
Who? You see a man carrying a crate walking over to you.
Liam Cunningham.
He shakes his head. Don't know him.
Off with you then.
And he doesn't stop. He just keeps moving past you to set up a crate somewhere else. You can see the boardwalk is cluttered with people walking up and down, horses drawing carriages and riders. This is a very busy street. It's only around 8 in the evening, but it's still very busy.
Come on then. We'll head back to my manor house.
Shouldn't our first step to be letting Ambrose know we're here? And introducing Amelia, of course.
Thomas looks down at the state of his clothes and then at the state of the rest of them. Amelia's the only one of us fit to present herself at all. The rest of us look like hammered shit, frankly.
Very well
Quite
then.
right.
We'll clean ourselves up and we'll head... Well then. I forget, is the Tower of London still the house of the Prince? Or has that changed?
It's been quite some time, no. Is it...
You
As
would
I
know it
recall-
still.
Okay. I thought the king had closed himself up in that for some reason. Anyway.
He did previously, not right now.
Alright.
During the Peasants' Rebellion.
Hopefully you have something that'll fit me. I haven't a free coin to buy a new set of clothes right now.
It might be a touch boon.
It's so big. Amelia's just looking wide-eyed at everything.
Indeed, a real city with a real prince.
How can you find anything in here?
It takes time. But once you've learned the ways of the walk and the walkways and the streets, and where to find the best bites, it all becomes a rather grand tableau.
But you must beware here, Amelia. There is the concept of domain we spoke of. Many Canaanites will have claimed parts of the city as their own. Feeding there without their permission would be akin to a death sentence. Even for an ally of the Gauntlet.
She looks at you very scared. How many are here?
He'll look to Thomas for that. He doesn't know.
Thomas rolls his eyes up as if pondering.
You can think of about a dozen off the top of your head, although you know there are transients and the lesser-known Canaanites that don't really show up at Elysium or anywhere else after being presented.
There are at least a dozen who normally show up to court. I would say probably twice that would rather keep their heads down and merely be counted and go away.
She's looking at you all slack-jawed.
Just be certain to stay close. It is rather easy to get lost in places you aren't familiar with.
Quite right. With that in mind, I'll bring up the rear to make sure no one steps astray. And from that position, he'll direct them to the Chamberlain estate.
Alright. Amelia grabs her knapsack. And Elenid, you're carrying the axe?
Yes. The wrapped axe. It's still wrapped in the blanket.
Okay, fair enough. And who's got the chest?
Thomas.
Okay.
He's got it up on one shoulder.
Okay. Alright. A group of you start winding your way through the streets of London. You finally make your way out of the boardwalk and into the city. And after about 45 minutes of walking through crowds and crowds, you make your way back to the Chamberlain estate, which you recognize Thomas as you approach down the street. Is this yours? He really looks up to you.
It's a family manor. I didn't build it, but I live here now.
She kind of nods to you and still looks around her as if still trying to get her bearings. She occasionally bumps into one or the other of you.
Thomas will gently direct her so that she doesn't stumble or fall over.
All right. As you approach the gate, it looks as though one of the men at the front recognizes you and the gate is opened. My lord.
Carry on.
He nods.
Have a runner find Liam Cunningham and have him sent to see me. He should be down at the docks yet.
He nods and turns back as if to go back and find someone.
And he'll march up to the front door. He's not going to knock. He's just going to open it unless somebody gets to it before him. One of the servants.
Yeah, you come in on your own before anybody actually reaches the door. The door is unlocked, of course, at this point, it's past the gate. And you make your way in this very fine manor house that's been kept up. And it reminds the rest of you similarly of the manor house you found in Salisbury. Similar in extravagance and taste and size.
How very ostentatious, Cormac says. Where exactly were you during the Peasants' Rebellion?
As I said, one of my regrets is not providing more aid. But I had my own uprising to put down.
You'll have to tell me about that sometime.
It's the reason I'm still a merchant. Put it that way.
Oh, you certainly do have a fine estate here.
As I said, I merely live here. I didn't build this.
No,
But he
your
does-
name is attached to it.
Fair enough. Thomas will call out, Kazim!
And as if by command, it's not long, they're just almost seconds later that you hear quick steps on tile as a short young man appears before all of you. You noticed he's actually dark of skin. He has short, curly brown hair, although he's dressed very well in a very nice red tunic and hose. He does look Moorish or something. He definitely stands out with that dark skin. Yes, sir.
Kazim, do me a favor and take the ladies up to find some proper clothes. They may be a touch big, long in the hem, but they'll serve at least for a presentation. Help them to find a place for their things, and see if we can't arrange a more permanent place for young Amelia here. He'll gesture to her specifically.
Yes, sir. Of course. It is very good to see you.
And you, my friend.
He bows deeply. If you will come with me, And he looks to Elenid and Amelia.
Elenid nods and says, "Of course," and follows along.
And Amelia looks starstruck. She's kind of looking around up towards the high ceilings as she's carrying the knapsack and follows after Elenid kind of absently.
Thomas sets the chest down quite heavily and looks for another servant.
You see another one passing by who catches your expectant glance, and he approaches.
Have baths drawn. We are quite road weary. The ladies will want to bathe, I'm sure.
This man silently bows and heads off, actually in the same direction that the three others, Kazim, Elenid, and Amelia, went.
I myself haven't had a bath in a dog's age.
Give it some time. There's only so much water we can boil at once.
You hear that, Robert? You're going to have to live in your grid a little bit longer as well.
I know. Such a tragedy.
I'll teach you a bit of etiquette, if it's the last thing I do. Have you not heard the expression, ladies first?
Robert laughs at this. I am not that oblivious.
There'll be another washroom, but, as I said, it will take time to draw the baths.
Then why not show us around your place?
Of course, and he'll do just that. Matter of fact, he'll go ahead and pick up the chest again and head downstairs towards the wine cellar.
Alright, so the group of you heading down to the wine cellar?
Yes.
Okay. Meanwhile, Elenid, you and Amelia are brought upstairs to a private guest room with a few basins that are brought out and screens to change. A few gowns are brought out, and you're allowed time to bathe and change.
Alright, she will do so, careful to avoid any mirrors by doing so.
There are plenty of mirrors in here, but Kazim, after he sets you up and a few people bring in some hot water to fill the basins, you are left by Kazim's order, and he closes the double doors behind him.
Alright. She will bathe and afterwards at least try to find anything that fits her, considering she is, as described, a rather stick of a woman.
Yeah, you have trouble finding anything that fits very well, but the dresses, they're a bit big on you, and they're also a bit big on Amelia after she sets about cleaning and dressing. But you find although they're big, they're at least apparently fairly nice quality gowns.
Alright. She'll find the one that fits the best. I mean, I know all of them are going to be big on her, but...
Yeah, it's almost as though you're used to dressing in clothes that are big on you because they're from, another woman who isn't a stick. But this is something else. This is as if the woman was very tall and perhaps very physically fit or big. Not fat, just larger in stature. Even compared to most women you've known and tried dresses on from. But you find something that works. It's not embarrassing to wear.
Alright. After doing so, she will get changed and fix her hair as best as she can.
Amelia's fixing her hair and she happens to glance over at you. Oh, I apologize. Do you need this?
What is she referencing? The hairbrush?
She's kind of sitting down at this area where there's mirrors purposely pointed, specifically, for fixing one's hair and setting about improving the appearance.
She gives a polite smile and shakes her head. No, thank you. I have become quite accustomed to doing this without any reflective surfaces.
Oh, how very strange. Very well. She returns to doing her own hair. And before
She makes no comment on it being strange. It is a rather peculiar area. That apparently I can't talk. A rather peculiar ailment. So
it seems to fly over her head for the moment. But before long, the two of you are coming back down, dressed and bathed. Amelia's looking fairly pleased, despite the gown being slightly large on her. Meanwhile, the three of you going down to the wine cellar, you're able to find a space for this chest that you can set down.
Well, Thomas is going to go ahead and tuck it into the hidden chamber, force open the entryway, then reseal it. This was where my father would spend his days. The wine is a relic of his predecessor. I have little enough use for it, though I do occasionally entertain clients.
Some of it must be very old then, and very valuable.
I wouldn't know. I don't really care for the stuff myself.
I used to, once upon a time. When I was a lad.
Never really developed a taste for it. He shrugs.
Certainly better than the water.
I did used to fancy a good mug of ale.
From your stories, I half expected you to say you took a custom to salt water.
Generally, I don't recommend it even to greenhorns on board ship. It tends to dehydrate more than it hydrates. There are also more than a few nasty diseases one can pick up from it.
So did you bring us down here just to show you us your wine and your secret room?
You wanted a tour. Figured I'd work my way up from the bottom.
Well, this is a safe enough place.
It's not meant to be fancy, but it will do, in a pinch. I, however, saw to it that a few of the rooms were outfitted for K-Night use. Such a pity to waste such a beautiful house and sleep in the basement.
Music to my ears.
And mine. Especially after 3 days on that ship.
You'll recover.
Already have.
Unfortunately, I cannot say the same of...
Give it time, Devere. Just give it time. And he'll lead them back up into the main floor.
So what's next? The pantry?
The main floor is mostly dining area. There is a substantial library. My father dabbled in medicine, theology, a number of other disciplines that simply don't interest me. Oh,
They interest me greatly.
It was actually quite by accident that I became a fairly competent businessman.
It must run in the blood.
Some men are born to greatness, and some people have greatness thrust upon them. And then others like me just manage to muddle through.
I'll say you're doing quite well for yourself.
Indeed, as you've admitted to yourself.
You're welcome to make use of the library if you need to while away a few hours. The kitchens are largely for the staff.
I take it they don't ask too many questions when you don't partake.
Most of them are actually in the employ of my sire.
Ah.
Though no, they don't ask too many questions. They have quarters of their own elsewhere. They are paid quite well. He looks pointedly at Cormac.
Cormac just gives Thomas that infuriating grin.
This is where I was during the Peasants' Revolt, making sure that those that I am responsible for have no reason to.
You're a more noble man than many.
When you spit such curses, people notice. The nobles are useless.
Robert just rolls his eyes.
If the same servant who helped to draw the baths for the ladies comes back through, he'll make mention. I'll take my bath in my chambers, but do have fresh water brought up for these fellows.
Soon enough, you're able to find servants who go about getting everyone baths and new clothes. For some of you, it's the nicest and most lush treatment you've experienced in years, perhaps longer. Having these baths drawn up and everything done for you by these servants and the staff. And before long, you're each looking a lot cleaner and nicer. Most of you have gathered back into this main foyer, this area to the center, near the front. It's around this time that, unless someone means to do something else, you see that Amelia and Eleanor have come back down from dressing up quite a bit. Amelia's done her hair up nicely, and she has a nice yellow frock on, which is a little bit big on her, but it still looks very nice.
Lynette has done her hair in much the same way she usually does, without her usual headwear to go along with it. It's at the low bun at the bottom of her hairline. There.
Thomas cocks his head a bit. You know, one of the maids would have helped brush your hair, style it as you like.
I'm quite fine with how it is.
He shrugs a bit. As you like.
Now then, is there any particular place you wanted the axe?
Indeed. He'll flag down a servant.
You have one waiting not too far away, and he comes over to your gesture.
Have this placed in my chambers, tucked out of the way, out of sight.
Do you just hand it to him?
Well, he'll try to. You may need help, though.
Yeah, as he begins to pick it up, you see his eyes bulging out, and he looks around, and Kazim, not missing a beat, also standing by, he'll go over, and he'll pick up the axe. I will take it there.
Thank you, my friend.
And he moves quickly to set it away.
A look of relief washes over Robert's face.
Where will we be going now? You said there was a prince? Like
There is-
Gabriel?
No. Not at all. We'll go and see him first, and then we will go and see about a meal.
Right. And Thomas, you would know by now that it isn't exactly safe for the prince to just linger in the Tower of London, and that presentations are generally done by notification through Elysium, either through the sheriff or the harpy, and basically relaying that message. The odds of getting to the Tower of London just walking in are nil.
Well, then we'll see about hitting up Elysium by way of a particular inn that Thomas knows about.
You would also know, because I failed to mention it before, there has been some changes to the streets of London and to the buildings over Elysium. The street that harbors Elysium is known as Seville Row, and the building that was once known as Pop Lollies, that was known as this tavern and brothel, has been bought out and reframed as a high-end tailor made for custom-made men's garments, jackets, and tunics. But it has a partnership with a little-known brothel that has remained. You know, the message to the kind was that the brothel was undone and that all the brothels were moved to the quarter of the city intended for that. This is something of a lesser-known brothel for a high-end clientele that doesn't want to know or be seen in that district, and it's known colloquially as Bella's. And of course, beneath this hidden brothel is Elysium, as it has been for some time.
But given that we have time, Thomas would probably take them through a particular inn he is very familiar with for a bite. Before going to Elysium.
Alright. We'll transition over to there. And which inn specifically are you going to? Oh, okay. Let me look something up really quickly.
Somewhere we're least likely to get hassled by a scourge or a sheriff.
So he takes you to an inn known as the Swan, and as you approach you can see appropriately there is a little sign with a swan on it. It's, from what you can see, it's a 3-story building that goes up. It seems well put together. You know, it's not. This isn't like the slums or the rack or anything. It's not exactly the highest end. It's somewhere in the middle where you think travelers and the average merchant would stay, and looks fairly busy this evening as he's kind of leading you in. And of course the streets are still quite busy. Unless someone adamantly objects to going inside or following him.
Cormac is all about it. This is his kind of establishment.
Robert's eager to go in.
Ned makes no objections.
Alright, soon enough, you're walking in and immediately greeted by a person behind this wooden counter. You see an older woman kind of lean over the bar behind her little counter. And how large is your party? And how many nights are we staying?
We're simply here for company and fellowship.
There are 5 of us.
As you say. And she kind of leans back into her seat. You see off to the side that there is a bar. Of course, ahead of you there are stairs that go up and hallways that lead to rooms. But there's another doorway off to your right that leads to what looks like more classic tavern where there are people sitting around and this barkeep tending to some customers and pouring them some ale.
Thomas will walk in and drop a coin purse on the bar. A round for everyone.
Here, you hear cheers go out and hands raise up. The barkeep takes your coin purse and jingles it a couple of times, looking at you and nodding. Oh, you look familiar. He kind of looks at you for a few moments, Thomas.
Well, it's been some time since I've been through, but you're not wrong.
Ah, darndest thing. What can I get you?
A mug of brown, if you would. And one for each of my friends.
He nods and sets about getting out some drinks. What are the rest of you doing?
Robert's scanning the crowd.
Cormac, too, looking for the most likely recipients of his company this evening.
Okay.
Elena
Yeah. Go ahead.
Elened is... for such a busy place in such a big city, she expects other people of their kind to be here, so she's glancing about to see if any signs of that.
Well, for such a big town, you'd also know that there are dozens of inns here along this stretch that goes through London, certainly. You might find one, but it's certainly not the only inn for sure. So I'll have you each make a perception alertness roll. Elenid, if you want to look for the supernatural, I'll have you do a perception awareness instead. Standard difficulty. Wow.
That's 7 successes.
Okay. Thomas, Cormac, and Robert, you pick out a few good targets, each of you, amidst these crowds. Again, there's a lot of drinking going on, so the odds of you picking up a buzz are better than not. But you think that your surveillance has improved your odds of picking out easier targets, at least. Elenid, while you're looking the room over for something completely different, because you got 6 successes. This is
7.
7 successes, yeah. You pick up on something odd, something that a neonate probably wouldn't think too much about, but with your experience you would think about it twice. There is an area of the room. This is a crowded tavern. It's very busy, but there is an area of the room, a table, where there's no one sitting, and there are people poring over tables. There's not enough places to sit. There's one table where no one is sitting. Everyone's kind of passing by it. No one's really stopping. No one's putting drinks down. There's an absence of activity there.
Well, her goal in this was to see if there are other supernaturals and make sure she's not intruding on their meals by going after certain people she spots. With that done, she will now look over and attempt to find her own meal.
Absolutely. I'll have you roll the same. You likewise find a couple people who are off in a corner. They would make good targets for sure. So you each have a few individuals or groups that would be fairly easy hunting in these. It's fairly crowded, but it actually works to your favor. Some of these spaces are darker, and there would be enough space for the people you found and the places they're at. The way some of these tables are arranged, that you could get away with this. Are you relying on the same roles of trying to hunt as before?
God, no.
Okay. How's Thomas hunting?
Thomas is going to go with seduction and be schmoozy. He's going to gravitate towards familiar faces, parts of his herd.
That's right, you do have her, don't you?
Considerable herd.
Okay. Let me look at your sheet really quick. So you actually, I don't need a roll from you. You can take up to 4 blood points for the sake of feeding without really any trouble, without any risk. If you want any more than that, we could talk, but if you just wanted that, you could easily get by. You find familiar faces who, nod to you and give you a wink, and it wouldn't be hard at all to feed from these folks, and it wouldn't be any danger either.
4 will do. Make up the rest another time.
Okay, so you're set. And Cormac.
He's going to use his normal roll, yeah.
Okay, I'll have you roll it again. Difficulty 5 here.
Was it charisma plus empathy?
Yes.
Better.
Yeah, you're able to find a few people you could feed from pretty easily. How much do you want to take from them each?
If there's a few, he'll take 2 from at least 2, more if that's available.
You find 3 people that throughout the next hour you'll be able to get alone for a little bit.
2 from each then.
Okay. And Robert.
Robert's going to look for a group of lasses to go spend time with.
Okay. I'll take charisma performance or charisma empathy. Difficulty 5 for you also.
Okay.
Yeah, you find 4 people over this hour that you could feed from. There's good hunting in London, apparently.
There sure is. Robert will fill up. Do you have any points? Yeah, he'll fill up 7 points, not from spread around.
That's easy enough to do. And Elenid.
Well, to introduce herself to the table, she would be using. Apologies. She would be, rather polite, and from there she would more share tales from when she was, well, folk tales from where she grew up to help break the water. Break the ice. Ice needs to be broken, not water.
Charisma, expression, difficulty 5. Oh yeah, at least 4. You're a Wunderkid at telling these stories. Apparently. Yeah, over this next hour, you all find it very easy to feed at your leisure. The company is good. Everyone seems to be in pretty good spirits. There's more than enough for everyone to go around. And Elenid, you notice by the end of this, you remember, you almost forgot that this table was empty. But when you look again, there's people back at it. Perhaps it was just a bad table. Maybe it needed cleaning. Who knows? There's people at it now.
Or someone being a sneaky snake.
Nah, it's paranoid. So you each kind of recognize the same look in the other's eyes of being sated and content. And I take it you group back together?
Yep.
Okay. You find it, you have to kind of share a bit of a table, but eventually this other group kind of just gets annoyed and leaves, so you find a table that the group of you can talk by yourselves, mostly off in a corner. You all sit down to it.
So, now that everything is said and done, there was a surprisingly empty table earlier.
Is that so?
She nods. And gestures slightly over to the table that now has people and is no longer empty.
What, do you think we were being watched?
Perhaps. People were avoiding it.
Barbara will look over at the table. She's gesturing to...
It looks fairly plain. There's a few people playing cards, there's a few people drinking. It's being shared by a few parties right now.
He'll turn on Auspex and scan the room, see if there's any other spots that are likewise to this.
Sure. I'll take perception awareness. Difficulty 6.
And that's without aspects reducing difficulty?
In this case, Auspex is kind of what's letting you make this scan. So this, just roll at 6 for now.
Ah.
So you look around, and you get a good look around. Nothing really strikes you as odd, even when you focus your senses to look for the supernatural. Nothing strikes you.
Puzzled look comes upon Robert's face, but he just shrugs. Well, I suppose it's too late now. I don't see anyone or anything odd.
Thomas leans in. The priors do as the priors will do. I expect this won't be the first or last time one of us experiences their company, whether they want us to know about it or not.
Yes. Still something to be aware of nonetheless.
Quite so. Just because you believe that you're alone in London doesn't mean that you are. Someone's always watching. But, so that they have nothing to talk about, I suggest we make for Elysium.
Quite right.
Does it really matter what they say anyway? We're here on official business. And he'll hold up his ring as way of emphasis.
True enough. But the Scourge still has to do its job.
Yes, official business or not, there is an order to things.
Then to Elysium we go. I'm excited to see what it looks like these nights.
Indeed, I have never seen Elysium here, at least.
A crawling pool of sycophants as always. What interesting to get her eyes out of. Maybe your sire will be there, Thomas. And he'll give him a very wicked smile. She's sure to enjoy seeing me again.
Thomas chuckles a bit. And he does look kind of sideways at Robert. Bella will eat you alive if you're not careful. Just keep that in mind.
That too is worth the price of admission.
So noted in your warning.
Besides, it'll be Amelia's first time at Elysium ever. At least one that makes a difference.
What is so important about this Elysium? Amelia finally breaks her silence.
You'll see. It's a place we can be ourselves and not have to worry about the wrong ears hearing certain things. Though, it's still best not to speak too unguardedly. There are certain ears you'd rather not hear everything.
He speaks true. It's a place where deals are made and broken, and status is gained and lost in the blink of an eye.
In my personal experience, it is usually best to be an observer there rather than a participant.
I've never found that to be my personal philosophy. Then again, I was forcibly forced out of London. A long while ago.
You were forced out of London. Why?
Not in so many words, but Ambrose, the prince, made it clear if I didn't leave, there was going to be trouble.
And there's only so much that a prince can do to stop, we'll say, offended parties from doing what offended parties do.
Times are a bit different now, after a fashion. I'm here for a reason, not to stir up shite.
Do you have any interest in smoothing things over?
Who's he talking to?
Cormac.
Moving things where now?
Well, it sounds like you have a poor reputation in London. Am I cutting out? Cutting out now.
Did. As I said, things would be different now.
Well
Thomas
then,
is-
let's waste no more time.
Thomas is going to make sure this conversation happens on the move.
Alright, so the group of you leave your table and leave for Elysium, it sounds like?
Yep.
Okay. We will pause here in the scene, and we will come back to this next week to see how the Elysium scene goes.
See if I do another triple botch while presenting myself.
Jesus Christ.
No.
I can't believe that.
Things will go swimmingly this time.
Because we have status dots to help us.
There's that.
If for no other reason.
Possibly. But then again, the Welsh Rebellion also just happened, and technically anyone who's of Welsh descent isn't supposed to be inside a fortified city according to law.
You're not Welsh.
If you were a kind, that'd be a problem.
True.
But you're able to blend in right now. The Canaanites don't care as much about that. So you're okay. Cormac's gonna have a harder time.
Yeah, but not
Damn
because he's
Irish.
Irish.
He's Irish
Ew.
and he's hated. Yeah, that'll be fun. Cool. One experience all around. And I want to explode experience on you guys. We'll be at this for a while. Let's do entertaining role player tonight. Let's start with Robert.
I'll give it over to Creepy. He always has a presence in these games.
Cool.
You're encouraging me to do something I'm trying to stop doing as much.
Creepy, what about you?
Think. I think I'll give it to Cormac. He weathered the horrifying triple botch in his feeding attempt fairly well and dealt with that appropriately.
I was waiting for him to fail that and just turn the inside of that inn into a slaughterhouse.
Oh god, I could see it happening too.
And then we'd have to leave in even more haste than we did.
One day it'll happen to be great.
Yeah.
About Cormac.
Oh, I'm gonna give it to Ellen at this time. Her scene with Amelia upstairs was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was cute.
Being offered the mirror and trying to find a way to decline.
And how about Elnid?
I'll give mine to Robert because there for the first half of the session, he was whenever we went from Group A to Group B, he was taking a more of a leadership role, and previously leadership role has almost entirely been on Thomas.
I personally like him playing up the uppity fop. I'm enjoying that a lot.
That too.
It is enjoyable.
Beds for me. I enjoyed that.